Hello everyone, welcome to this video. I'll be explaining to you what is safe space. But before that, I want to introduce a little bit about myself in case you're watching this video or watching me for the first time. So my name is Martha. I'm a relationship counselor and clinical sexologist. I've been in practice for 10 years. And what I do is I specialize in sexuality. And when it comes to sex, intimacy, massage, you may have heard of this term called safe space. So 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, when I first started my journey to be trained as a sex educator, I came across this word called safe space. And I didn't know what it was, even though I had considered myself a spiritual person for about 10 years then. So this was like 11, 12, 13 years ago. And then even prior to that, another 10 years, I had already been practicing spirituality, meditation, mindfulness, blah, blah, blah. So I have already been a spiritual person for a long, long time. And then I attend this training called Sexological Bodywork. So in Sexological Bodywork, when I was in San Francisco going through this training, I was introduced to the term safe space, creating a safe space for the first time in my life. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. So I just kind of like, oh, this is a cool term that I have never heard of. Creating safe space sounds really cool. And so I just kind of went along with it and I really didn't know what it meant. Eventually, eventually I had to ask. I had to ask because there's only so much you can fake. Fake being spiritual, fake being cool. And so I asked my classmate, what does it really mean? And let me explain a little bit more. So I mentioned that I had already been spiritual for about 10 years before going to train as a sex educator and then being introduced to this term safe space. So I had been trained in this modality called Reiki, and back then Reiki was still very new. Nowadays, almost anybody who is an energy healer, massage therapist, blah, 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 they all know Reiki. So back then, when I started to practice Reiki, it was still not cool. It was still very esoteric and still very new agey. And so in Reiki, I'm explaining this so you can better understand the difference between sending and just being. So in Reiki, what you do is you become attuned. It opens up your chakras so that you can receive energy from the universe, from divine, into your body, and then you channel energy primarily, okay, not the only way, but primarily, mainly through your hands. So in Reiki, you can learn to first send energy through your body, through your hands, to someone that you actually touch, or you may not even touch them. Just hover your hands over their body and you can still send that warm energy to them. So in Reiki, there are a few things where you are not meant to do, which is you're not meant to send negative vibes and bad thoughts to people, which actually helped me to become the loving, wonderful person that I am, because I've learned to only be warm and nice to people. I don't want to be negative and send love and I send hate to people. So anyway, in Reiki, you tap energy from divine and then you send good energy to people. So when I was going through my training in sexological body work, so just to make it very clear, I have gone through the training as a sexological body worker and I do teach people vulva and penis massage, but in Singapore, I do not do any hands-on touch in any of my trainings or session. So I'm a no-touch therapist. So I coach people in overcoming their sexual and relationship concerns through talk, through coaching, through counseling, but I don't do touch. But I went for this training called Sexological Body Work, where there is touch involved, vulva, penis, anal massage. So I do teach this, but I'm not a tantrika, I'm not a sex worker. I just don't use my body to teach people skills. I don't, because that's my boundary. That's my boundary. I am in Singapore. I want to create a space where people feel safe to come to see me and not think that I'm sleazy and not think that I'm going to like attack them or be attacked. I want to create certain boundaries for myself. So anyway, when I went for this sexological bodywork training, I was introduced to the term safe space for the first time. So what you do is you do the massage session on a on your client or classmate, and then you just You just stand back and you just kind of hold space. So I had a classmate who was doing it very well, and I was like, whoa, that looks quite impressive. So there is a difference between sending energy while the person has done the massage and just lying in stillness, sending energy. Ooh, yeah, I heal you. Yeah, send you healing energy. Or you just hold space. So hold space essentially, in a long-winded explanation, hold space essentially, as I started to suggest just now, is being. So if I have a client, if I don't do hands-on touch, but if I had a client who I just had a massage session with and they need some time to reintegrate the energy, come back to their body, catch their breath. So hold space essentially means is that you are just guarding that space to make sure that they are safe. Meaning nothing goes into that space and nothing goes out of that space that is going to make them feel scared or vulnerable. So meaning if you're holding space for them, nobody approaches them, nobody pokes them, plays with them, makes fun of them, pull their hair. Nobody does that. So hold space essentially means is you are just there to guard that space. You are just there as a container for everything that can happen or everything that needs to happen. So it's like a container. In a very good a nutshell analogy, the container is not doing anything to you, not poking, not pulling, nothing, just being. The container is just there to make sure this is you, this is the space that we are in, and so be it. So the safe container is very important because then everything that can come out, that needs to come out, that will come out, like water in that container, just can flow. You shake the container doesn't change shape. The container is just still the container. The water inside can be still, the water inside can be volatile if you shake it, but essentially the container is the container. So when we talk about being in a relationship and creating a safe space for your partner, if your partner is telling you about the day, if your partner is crying and screaming, the safe container doesn't react. The safe container doesn't shame or scold, or the safe container doesn't start to also become affected and volatile. The safe container is just there to kind of allow what happens to happen. So a lot of couples, they rub off each other, and that is not really communication if you are reacting to what is coming up for them. What is coming up for them is their truth. So do you ever notice that some people, or maybe in past relationships that you've been in, your partner will keep repeating the same story again and again? And in my work, I start to realize that a lot of times it is because they don't feel completely heard. They start to say, you think they have finished, and then you start to give advice. So what you're doing is you're actually interrupting their thinking process or their emotional process. So it's almost like a short circuit. So it's not fully processed, and that's why it's coming up again. But with a safe container, what you can do is you can say something like, do you feel that everything that needs to be spoken is finished? Or you can ask something like, have you finished sharing? Don't say like, have you finished sharing? The tone you say is very important as well. So the safe container just allows what needs to come up to come up. And so in a nutshell, safe container doesn't just mean in the context of massage therapies, making sure your client is safe. It also means when you're in conversation with someone, they feel safe. And so in my sessions with my clients, it's also the same thing. We start off the session and you'll be amazed. You think, oh, Asians don't talk much, or you say Asians are this or that. Let me tell you, Asians are also human beings. Asians also have emotions. Asians also have repressed thoughts and feelings. So what happens in a lot of my sessions, the way I do it is I may start off the session by just having a curious question. What made you decide to come see me? And I let them explain to them what is going on in their own words. So it's so important that they get to articulate, because then it also, all these thoughts in their head starts to fall into line, starts to make sense, starts to become more congruent, not just for them, but also for me. So I may not understand fully what they are saying at that point, but I just allow what needs to come up to come up. Then I hear it fully. I make sure I've heard it fully. I might ask something like, is there anything else you'd like to add? is there anything else that you think might be useful for me to know? I might ask that so that I get the full picture, and then I ask them questions to get the details to the gaps in between, like for instance, how long they've had this problem and what they have tried, maybe certain things they haven't said. I might ask that to get more details. But what I'm essentially doing at the start of the session by don't talk, just let them talk, because they will tell me the problem and they will also tell me what they think would be the solution in their own words, which is fine. But I'm a sex coach and a sex counselor and a relationship counselor as well, so I do have very specific subject matter expertise, which then I can offer to them. But I cannot offer it to them when they don't feel safe, when they haven't felt hurt. So I do need to shut up and just really have that safe container and let them say what they need to say. So this is what I mean by safe container. So I do this as a living all the time. I listen a lot, and I need to listen, because why would I want to hear what you have to say when you haven't even heard what I have to say? So essentially, isn't it very much parallel to what's happening in relationships? Okay, so safe space can apply to a touch session, can apply to a relationship, and also applies to counseling sessions. So creating a safe space for my clients also means me having certain disclaimers out there for them. Like for instance, these are my boundaries and you need to respect that. But within this context of this container, this box, this is what I do, and this is what you can expect from me. So this is the reason why before I work with a client, I do get them to read through and understand the parameters of our work. Is very important, so they are at the better frame of mind. They don't feel scared, they don't feel that something is going to spring on them. They start to feel safe. Then we talk to each other, they start to say what they want to say and what their issue is, so that I hear their point of view before we even talk about starting our work together. So this is Martha sharing a little bit from my own perspective what safe space means. But just to summarize, safe space doesn't mean doing anything. Safe space is very much the equivalent of being a container and just allowing what needs to come up to come up. And in order to do that, one needs to be in a being state, just be. Not in a doing state, not in a fixing state, just be, just listen. So creating safe space for each other can mean taking turns to speak, or asking and making sure the person has fully said what they need to say. That is what safe space means. So this is Martha of Eros Coaching, feeling inspired to make this video because I realized I haven't made this video before, and I do have clients who ask me what is safe space. So I hope this video makes sense and gives you an idea of what to expect in our sessions where it is safe. Safe means it's private, it's confidential, there's no discrimination. I hear what you have to say before I tell you what I think. I might ask you questions to get a better idea of what's happening for you, but I am there to not freak out, not get overwhelmed, not judge you, not laugh or cry at you. I might cry or laugh with you, but I'm not here to judge. So this is Martha. Check out my website. That's eroscoaching.com.